Hi, welcome to another edition of Legal Quilts. There's a lot going on in the day job and life right now, so this is going to be a really short one. What it is in Work in Progress Winter, I'll show what you do when you finish with yo-yos. I'm going to link in the show notes, but remember I showed you how to make these lovely little circles called yo-yos over the summer? Well, what do you do with them when you finish? You can do so much with them. You can sew each one individually to a piece of fabric. Just sew right there in the middle, just tack it on there. And then layer it, with the batting and backing and make a quilt like you traditionally do. You can just sew them all together and have a really light coverlet without sewing them onto fabric or putting the 3 layers on, just having all the yo-yos sewed together in a very large blanket. In a very large coverlet, very large thing. You can sew these into any shape you want. You can do circles, you can do hexagons, you can do triangles, pyramid shape, diamonds, any shape you want you can do. You just have to have enough circles for what you want to do. They're embellishments. I'm wondering if you can do heart-shaped. I'd probably do that as an embellishment where I just laid them on there. And you can use different sizes if you're using them as an embellishment or you're sewing them onto the back of the fabric, you can use different sizes. If you're making like circles or triangles or whatever, you do want them all to be pretty much the same size because otherwise the rows just don't work properly. So today we're just doing a simple mat of 9 yo-yos, 3 by 3, very simple, square. And I had these little yellow ones cut out over the summer. They're not quite the same polka dot pattern as you can see. One's big polka dots and one's little. But that's about the only difference. They're pretty much the same color. And you can do this scrappy, planned, whatever you want with these. Yo-yos are very versatile, like I said, and they're so great to travel with because it's just the circle, the needle, and thread. Boom, you're good. And something to cut the thread. Because we don't want to use our teeth. And even though they're different, because I've got 9, it's not like I can divide it equally up between them, so I'm just grabbing as we go. All right? So how do you sew them together? You need your needle and thread, and let me see if you can see this here. Yeah. I like to double it, okay? I like to use 2 pieces. Let's see if I put that against this so you can see it a little better. I like to use not 2 pieces, but double my thread over when I'm doing this, because it makes it a little stronger, okay? So you tie a knot at the bottom on both of them, just 1 knot on both ends, and snip your knot a little bit at the end there. Snip any extra thread so you don't have any pieces sticking out, all right? And then you just very simply take 2 yo-yos, put them back to back, or front to front, it doesn't matter. Decide which, it doesn't matter, because if you do it front and back, it folds out like that. If you do them back and back together, the flat back together, you do it like that, okay? It doesn't matter, you're going to wind up with the same thing anyway. Take your thread, put it through one of the yo-yos, so that your knot is pulled through. Oops, come on. Might not have a big enough knot here. I should. Tug on it a little gently. There you go. And make sure your thread is pulled through easily. And then you just whip stitch. Okay? Let me raise it up a little. You push it through both of them. You bring it around to the front, push it through both of them. Pull your thread. Bring it around to the front again. Push your needle through both of them. Pull your thread. Bring it around to the front. Pull your thread. Push it through both of them, pull your thread. I do this 4 or 5, maybe 6 times. However you're feeling comfortable. You're not going to do this a lot. You're not going to make a solid thing all the way around. You're just going to whip stitch it together a little bit on one side. See? Okay? Just enough to hold them together. That's why 5 or 6. Okay? And you just keep doing that. 5 or 6, nobody's counting. I probably have done more or less on some of them. And when you get to the last couple of stitches, Let's see if you can see this here. See, my thread is still a bit of a loop. Stick your needle through, pull it tight. Do that one more time. Okay. Do that one more time. Pull it through that loop. Okay. And that makes a knot. And by doing it twice, you're basically knotting it twice. So if one knot comes loose, the next one will stop it. Okay. That's also why I like to do this double threaded, because if this thread here breaks, this one still is going to hold it together until they both break. But it's less likely to happen. I do this when I sew buttons on too. And I just found it, my buttons don't come off as much because you've made it a little stronger, okay? And that's the thing, when you're sewing these, like if you do a whole coverlet or something, you do have to be a little gentle with it, because you're not, I mean, you're just tacking them together, basically. I think I just ripped some stitches out even, okay? You're just tacking it together. You're not doing a whole big seam and pulling it out of shape. You're just tacking two of them together. And then for the next one, you do the same thing. You take it, you've got this whole thing, stick it on the end. And you do the same thing. Just whip stitch it together. Whip, 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 whip. Oops, you know what I forgot to do here? See what I said about cutting off that little bit of thread? See, can you see it? That teeny little bit of thread right there? Kind of see behind my hand? Yeah. You want to snip that off so it's not sticking out and not looking so good, okay? And you just whip stitch it together. You don't have to get it exactly right, even with your stitches and everything. All right. And you can experiment with how much you want to sew and where you want to sew them. Like if you're doing a pyramid shape or a diamond, you might be sewing a little more on different sides, or along more, just like, or with a hexagon, just like if you were sewing hexagon pieces, you would be doing a little more sewing than if you were sewing a square. All right. So again, when you get to the end, loop it through, pull that knot, do it again, and you're done. And that's that row, okay? And so when you get to the end of your row, you're all done. You just keep sewing until you've got the row or the shape, the beginning of the shape you want. Then you want to sew the rows together. Whoops, there we go. All right, and how do we do that? This is also a little different than we're used to. Whoops, I thought I had more thread. Okay. Oh, had two needles all set and neither one has enough thread on them. So again, pull your thread out. Sorry about this. Okay. And you tie the knot. You don't have to get it exactly even when you tie the knot, because you can balance it out later. So just get your ends up to each other and tie your knot. And I do double knot the knot, so it's double of the, and again, if your ends aren't exactly even, it's okay, because you're going to snip off that little extra bit anyway. All right, you just don't want to mess it up so much that you wind up with no thread you can use. All right, and then, come on. Should have done 3 needles. Of course, now that I'm on camera, I can't tie a knot to save my life. All right, come on. Come on. All right, not perfect. There we go. Double knot it. There we go. And you see that long little end there? You just snip that off. Don't cut your knot. I'm always worried about that. And then even if your ends weren't straight, you just pull your needle, hold the end of the knot, hold the knot, and pull your needle, and it'll straighten it all out for you. Okay? So you've got your finished piece. You know, you've got the row you're sewing it to, and you just lay the next row over. Here's where it's slightly different. You're gonna sew just like before, just a little bit tacking with a whip stitch to one of them, okay? But you're only gonna tack it down a little bit, all right? Just whip stitch there. Bring it around to the front, push it through them both. Around, like I said, 5 or 6 times. Nobody's counting. But you don't want to go too far because you'll just get a seam then that you don't want. And you don't want to do it too deep here into your yo-yo because otherwise you'll have a flap when you straighten it out. And maybe you want that. If you do want a flap, which could be interesting, like you could flip them over and sew them down like the magic circles, but most people don't. So you don't want too much of a, you don't want to be in there too deep. See, I'm only right about here. You don't want to be back in here because otherwise then you've got a seam where it's folded over and you get a distorted shape and it doesn't work as well. You want the circle to stay as much as possible. All right. We're gonna whip stitch this through. Alrighty. And tie it off. You're not going, see, I'm just stitching it like I did one to the other. You're not going to just sew a straight seam like you would if you were sewing rows of blocks together. Okay? Let me do one more knot. I'm not sure if I did one. Alright. Pull that. Alrighty. And then you cut it. You don't continue sewing straight across. You see, the ones I've already did, you can see there's this nice little space in there. If you sewed straight across, you wouldn't have that space. And it also would be distorted because you wouldn't have, you'd either have thread showing in this space here, or it would be distorted because you're trying to get all the fabric. See how it would be all squished together? Because you'd be trying to get all the fabric to sew in a straight line. And that doesn't look as good. So you just leave it like that. Yes, I'm hanging off here. But then you just, that's all you do. You sew each one to the next one in the row until you're done. And that's it. I know it's flapping a little bit here. I'll hold it like this. And that's it. And it's done, and that's the simple little yellow mat made out of yo-yos. Just a simple one. You can do this in any number you want. I'm working on a 16 one right now. You can make it as big as your bed. You can, like I said, do other shapes.
1, 2, 4.
Oh, God. Ignore that. I hate when I get a phone call right in the middle. And it was spam, no less. So anyway, that's it. That's how simple it is. And you wind up with a really nice little mat. Which side is the front? Is the top and bottom for a mat? You can use either side. I have put glasses even on a mat with the circles facing up where you see the holes, where you see the center bit. Ignore the fact that all the centers aren't the same size. It happens. You want your end piece to be the same whether your center hole is the same or not. And again, there's no quilt police. So I've put glasses on this and they haven't fallen over. Or you can use it where that's kind of a cushion on the bottom, the puffy side, and this is the flat side. It doesn't matter. If you're doing a coverlet or something, you want the circles, the center here up, just because it looks cooler. And some other things like the crabby pillow, yeah, you're going to have the yo-yo out. But it doesn't really matter which side you use if you're making a mat and you want to use the mat, okay? But if you're doing it as embellishments or something, you really want the yo-yo part which is this part here, showing up. So that's it for this edition. Next time we'll be cutting the fabric for the Tapestry Ocean Surface Quilt. The fabric requirements are on my Ko-fi page. It's free to see. Don't worry, you don't have to sign in, become a member or anything to see that. And the link to that will be in the show notes too. The link to my Ko-fi pages, and then you can just go see it. Let me see what else. So that's going to be next time. Link to my website is going to be there. Please visit and buy things. If you've got any questions, comments, please let me know. Leave your comments down below. Like, share. The more people who subscribe, the better. Every little bit helps. And that's it. Until next time.